Yo, in this video I'll talk about rep ranges for hypertrophy. This is not a very discussed topic, and it's a shame, because rep ranges are very important for building muscle. But most people just do 8 to 12 reps, which is still a great rep range, but not the only one. In this video I'll tell you the benefits of using multiple rep ranges, when to use them, how to apply them, and why classic rep ranges like 5x5 or 3x3 are not that good for hypertrophy. And I'll also give you a progression scheme to use on all of your rep ranges. Now, when people say hypertrophy rep ranges, they usually mean higher rep ranges, because that's what we were told, that for hypertrophy you need to use light weights and high reps, and for strength you need to use low reps and high weight. But that is not entirely true, and using some quote-unquote strength rep ranges can help you build more muscle. Lower reps can help you progress faster on bigger movements, like squat, bench, deadlift. You can use lower reps on those movements because that will help you progress faster on them. And it will also help you progress faster on your secondary movements. You may also want to use a lower rep range for exercises where form deteriorates quickly, as you do more reps, like a conventional deadlift for example. A 3 to 5 rep range might seem low, but for a deadlift it's perfect. The way to apply lower rep ranges is pretty simple. For your first movement in the program, which I assume is a compound movement, unless you're doing some sort of pre-exhaustion or something like that, I assume that your first movement is a compound movement, like a squat, bench, deadlift, OHP, pull-ups and things like that, right? And this is the most important movement of the day, because that's why you put it first and it's the hardest movement of the day. But on this movement, we are not looking to accumulate as much volume as possible. That comes later in the session. I'll talk about that in a bit. This movement is here to ensure that you'll progress, so use a lower rep range. For most of those movements, a 4 to 8 rep range is perfect. You can go as low as 3 to 6 if you want to. And if you enjoy higher rep ranges more, you can use a 6 to 10. That however is a little high for me, but it can work on things like OHP or rows. And now, after you've done that, the secondary movements will have the quote-unquote hypertrophy rep ranges. For example, if you did a 4 to 8 on your bench press, and let's say that your secondary movement is a machine press, you can do something like a 6 to 10. Or an 8 to 12. For isolations, most of the time you should be using an 8 to 12 rep range. But don't be afraid to use a 6 to 10. That might seem like a little low for isolations, but it might be exactly what you need. You can treat it as like your compound movement for your isolation, to help you progress on your other isolation. For example, a 6 to 10 on a standing barbell curl is a very good rep range. Don't always do 8 to 12 on every isolation movement, because that's how you get stuck using the same weights. And for things like lateral raises, shrugs and ab work, 10 to 15 might work better than 8 to 12 or 6 to 10. I wouldn't really go higher than 15 though, because at that point you might reach cardiovascular failure before you reach muscular failure. And plus you'll be wasting time for no reason doing 20, 25, 30 reps per set. If you can do that many reps, just up the weight and do lower reps. Though I guess you can do that if you've maxed out the weight and you can go higher. But at that point I think it's a better idea to just switch out the exercise, because you can only milk a weight for so long by adding more reps. Now if you're confused why I named them 8 to 12 and not just 12, is because that is the range where you should do all your sets for that movement. You shouldn't do 12 reps every set, but rather have that rep range of 8 to 12 in every set. So for example, let's say I do bench, and my rep range is 4 to 8. Let's say that on the first set I can do 7 reps. Now on the second set I will do 6 reps, because I will be a little more fatigued from my first set. And then let's say set 3 I can only get 5 reps. And by the way, this is assuming we're using the same RP on all of our sets, which will either be 0 reps in the tank or 1 rep in the tank. Now next week, on the first set, we will be able to do 8 reps, if we manage to get stronger. Then on the second set, we'll do 7, and then 6. But next week, instead of upping the reps again, we'll up the weight, because we reached the top of our rep range, which is 8, and the bottom is 4. That's why it's a 4 to 8. So we'll up the weight by 5 pounds, and now on our first set, we'll only do 6 reps, and then 5, and then 4. And now you just repeat the whole process again, until you get to 8 reps again, and then you up the weight again. This way, our progression will be much smoother, as opposed to doing a 5x5 or a 3x3, and all those common rep ranges that are mostly used for strength, where you won't train as hard on your first sets on purpose in order to get the same amount of reps every set. You'll quickly realize that that is not a good scheme for building muscle, because if you're doing a 5x5, you're basically doing 4 warm-up sets and 1 set, which is wasting a lot of time. If you do this other scheme like how I explained before, you ensure that you'll go close to failure every set, and you'll progress faster in the long term because you're not limited by only adding weight, which is way harder than adding reps. You can just add reps, and when you get to the top of the rep range on your first set, you up the weight and you build back up.